Welcome to this episode of the Sports Detective Podcast Show. My name is James Williams, and today we are talking about Baylor Bears football. I am joined by Scotty Swingler, who is the host of the Please Bear With Me show, and he's also the producer of the Pete Souza show. And I wanted to talk about Baylor because this has been a kind of an interesting program for a lot of different reasons over the last few years. Took a little bit of a dip in 2022, 2023. Last year, I watched a few of these Baylor games at the beginning of the year. I personally, another game I was very mad at the beginning of the season is when you guys absolutely choked away the Colorado game. I was very disgusted at that game by Baylor. And then a few games later, I get to see you guys, up close and personal playing against my Iowa State Cyclones. And I thought you guys were not a good football team. I thought Dave Aranda was going to be leaving town shortly after that. And then things turn around, finish the season with a 6-game winning streak. What happened for where I'm watching Baylor at the beginning of last season and they just look like a very bad football team, not well coached, maybe don't have the best talent, and then they just are able to turn it around and, last week of the season had a small chance to get into the Big 12 title game.
I mean, if we don't choke away that Colorado game, as you mentioned, we would have been in the Big 12 title game. It was an absolutely crazy turnaround. And the long answer is this program has not had stability or consistency on the coaching staff or the roster for 3 or 4 seasons. And so it just took some time for everything to come together. But the short answer, and maybe the answer that is cliche but true, James, is Sawyer Robertson happened. This kid at quarterback for Baylor still has not been a starter for a full season front to back, which is part of why fans are so excited and optimistic about this coming season for Baylor. So Sawyer Robertson comes in week 3, starting his first game for Baylor after Baylor paid $1.5 million to DeQuan Finn, the MAC Player of the Year in 2023 from Toledo, and he was a total bust. We knew that in the second quarter of the week 2 game at Utah. So to answer your question, you got the quarterback right, finally. Baylor hasn't done that since 2021, the last time we won the Big 12. And then the very unstable, constantly shifting seas of the Baylor coaching staff for the last 4 years kind of finally figured it out, which again is, I think, part of the reason fans are so optimistic about 2025 is the consistency and the pieces you're bringing back, not only the full coaching staff, but on the roster as well.
Absolutely. I think another thing, too, was at the beginning, you've seen it a little bit. I think we've seen it mostly in kind of some of these Big 12 schools where, like Mike Gundy was talking about it last week at Big 12 Media Days, where he's like, I kind of thought this NIL thing was going to go away, but now I realize I have to buy into it. Since now I'm buying into it, we have a different approach here. Baylor was kind of the same way, where I believe Dave Aranda said last year, he's like, we're just now starting to pay players. And it's like, hey, you're about 2 years late. So I think the combination of Sawyer Robertson emerging and becoming one of the best quarterbacks, not even just in the Big 12, but in all of college football. You guys obviously have Brian Washington, the running back, who emerged and had a great year. The receivers really started to showcase themselves too. So I just think just all of that momentum from what you're seeing with the offense in the last 3 quarters of the season for Baylor just is really setting you guys up well for success in this next season.
You're spot on with the NIL stuff, right? And I want to give Baylor a little credit, even though as a fan in 2022 and 2023, I was furious about this. Baylor thought that NIL was going to be this small thing, and so what we can do as the Christian school is pay all the players the same and make it fair for everybody, and we're going to use that as part of our kind of values, Christian ethic thing to get the good kids to come to Baylor. And it just very quickly became apparent. I mean, very quickly became apparent that is not how this works, that this is like a professional sport at this point. And you are going to have to play top tier money for top tier talent. What's crazy about the success last season is, as I mentioned, the highest paid player on Baylor's roster last season was DeQuan Finn, and he was not the starter after week 2. And so Baylor had that success. And I think this year, again, reason for optimism, Baylor is returning a lot of those stars. And so the money, we know for the most part, is going to the players. who are going to make an impact on the field this season. Great point. I want to say, too, something you didn't mention, but I mentioned the consistency in the coaching staff. A huge part of that turnaround with that offense clicking, like you said, was offensive coordinator Jake Spavital. His first season was last year. When he was hired at Baylor, there were some mixed feelings here in the fan base. That dude hasn't stayed at a school very long. He's not been a very good head coach in a few attempts. So some mixed feelings. But that offense at the end of last season was by far and away the most explosive we've seen in Waco in a decade since Art Briles was here in Waco. So it was an exciting time to see. So again, that is what happened. James, like all these pieces came together and became consistent. The offensive scheme, the quarterback, the roster. And now going into 2025, all of those are back, which again, I'm going to be so obnoxious to people that don't follow Baylor closely or hate Baylor. But we are so optimistic. Every fan in Waco expects Baylor to be in the Big 12 title game this year. And I think if we fall short of that, there is still going to be some folks calling for Dave Aranda to get fired.
So he's still kind of like on shaky ground with the fan base right now?
Big time.
Okay.
Big time. Yeah, I mean, here's the deal, and I like Dave Aranda, the human, and you cannot deny he's probably, if he goes back to being a coordinator, one of the 5 best coordinators in the sport. I mean, he won the national championship with LSU. People forget that offense was so electric with Burrow and Chase and those guys, but that defense was dynamic and a huge part of why they were so dominant that whole season. But here's the deal. Dave Aranda won a Big 12 championship in 2021. 95% of those contributing players were Matt Rule's guys. And people view that different ways because, yeah, Matt Rule didn't coach that team to a championship. Dave Aranda did. So he deserves credit for that. But Terrell Bernard, Jalen Petrie, those guys who just signed big second contracts in the NFL, those were Matt Rule recruits. And what happened after that championship? 6 wins in 22. And then I stopped watching in 23. I don't even remember how many games. Did we win 3 games in 23? 4 games? It was horrible. I stopped watching football for the first time in my life. I was so mad. Then last year, let's just be honest, it was after that game in Ames, which you mentioned earlier, that I was with you. And I was saying, that's it. Dave Aranda's done. We're 2-4. Like, what are we going to do? And then out of nowhere, it looks like a different football team the rest of the season. And so I think fans are still unconvinced about Dave Aranda. And so here's the deal. I've talked about the expectations. You've got the best QBR in America coming back at quarterback in Sawyer Robertson. You've got the number 1 running back on a lot of people's list in the Big 12 in Bryson Washington. Your entire most of your receiving yards are back from last season. 4 of your 5 offensive linemen are back. Jake Spavital is back. Your offense better be electric. And Dave Aranda, if the defense is bad, that is squarely on you because you are the defensive play caller. Defense is your thing. The defense last year was unacceptable for a lot of people. We gave up so many passing yards. It was absurd. So if this team does not win 9-10 games this season, people will call for him to be fired. Here's the other thing about this, James, with Dave Aranda's job security. I don't know if you've watched what happened in the last 6 days on the recruiting trail. Baylor football went from the number 52 ranked recruiting class to number 22 in 6 days. Baylor football currently has 6 4-star commitments for 2026. That is twice as many as every other Big 12 school has 5 and 4 stars combined. So Dave Aranda is putting together this lights out class right now for 26, which gives him favor. But what's going to happen if this team comes out and wins 7 or 8 games again next season and 5 of those 4-star commits decommit? Nobody's going to want Dave Aranda in Waco. We're going to be ready to move on.
Okay. Heavy expectations for Dave Aranda this year. I mean, you're just looking at the schedule too. You start off with Auburn, who is kind of you can maybe say in like a more of a similar situation where it's like, hey, it's put up or shut up time for Hugh Freeze.
Yeah,
SMU coming off of the college football playoff appearance from last year. Didn't go that well in that game, but like you're going to kind of know pretty early on in this Baylor season, hey, is this team for real? Is this team actually going to be competing for a Big 12 title game? I do want to kind of focus more on the offense a little bit here because we're talking about how explosive everything was last year. I just kind of going through the stats. It seems like it was more of a balance. Like we obviously have the running back that you mentioned, Washington, who was phenomenal last year, Sawyer Robertson. What do you think when you're watching Baylor? When is this offense playing at its best? Is it when they're establishing the run? Is it when they are making deep plays in the passing game? What is it?
It's balance, and I hate to be cliche about that, but here's the deal. At least through 4 weeks last season, through the BYU game, I believe that was week 4 last year is when I vividly remember being upset about this. Baylor's offensive line looked like the worst unit in the Big 12. They were atrocious, and part of this turnaround that happened midseason was somehow that group figured out how to play together. Now, part of it was they were rotating through a few guys trying to get the right 5 on the field, and they finally did. But then when that offensive line gelled, everything else works. And of course, that's how the game of football works, right? But it is that balance, and it does start with the running attack. So you're going to hear me talk. I want to give all the flowers to Sawyer Robertson. I think he's the best quarterback at this school in a decade. I think he's going to be a first or second round NFL draft pick. I think the dude is so legit, and I think people are still sleeping on him nationally. But it is so important for Baylor.
That's a little first or second round draft pick.
Let's go, James. Go listen to what Todd McShay said after the Manning Passing Academy. Go listen to it. It's awesome. He said that none of the big name quarterbacks could hit all the targets, and Sawyer Robertson walked out there and threw dots and hit every target. That Peyton Manning was impressed. He's starting to get some buzz with the scouting community with the not just the intangibles, but the tangibles as well. But we will see. We can talk some crap in April and see who's right on that. I think he's that good. But going back to my point, I think he's that good, but he cannot succeed if Baylor's not running the football. That's true for most of football, but here's the deal. Bryson Washington might be the best player on this Baylor roster. I mean, the kid is just incredible. North-south playmaker, has enough speed in the open field, but is truly a between-the-tackles runner. Dawson Pendergrass behind him, PFF had ranked as the 4th best returning running back in the Big 12. PFF says it's Bryson Washington 1, Dawson Pendergrass 4. People forget that it was kind of a two-headed monster at times last year, and then 2 really, really talented 4-star freshman running backs coming in as well. That running game, I think, is where it all starts. And that, you know this. You have the threat to run. Those play action passes give Sawyer that one step to use his accuracy and hit receivers downfield.
You mentioned it earlier about the defense, how a lot of times you're watching Baylor over the last few years, the defensive side of the ball has been kind of the weak link of the team. And just specifically like last year, it seemed like the defensive backs were just kind of slow.
Yes.
And it seemed like that was really like, you can maybe point at like some other stuff with the D line too, as far as like the weakness on the defense. But like what have they done this offseason, specifically in the transfer portal, to kind of bolster this defense and then hopefully like get it just kind of like above water?
So you nailed it. You nailed it right there with your analysis. That the defensive back unit at Baylor last year was by far, down the stretch of the season, the weak link. If you go watch the bowl game, the Texas Bowl we played against LSU, they are just targeting Caden Jenkins the entire game. Caden Jenkins, a freshman All-American who really regressed last season and surprised a lot of people. That whole defensive backfield was poor. So here's what Baylor's done. 1, hired away Paul Gonzalez from TCU, which, by the way, anytime we can steal someone from TCU, I'm all about it. Screw those guys, right? I usually say horns down, but we'll do this down today, right? So took Paul Gonzalez, well-respected cornerbacks coach from TCU. He's at Baylor. Reports from practice are it's making a difference. The other thing, like you mentioned, transfer portal. We hit that defensive side of the ball hard at all 3 levels: D-line, linebacker, and defensive backfield. Tons of transfers coming in, lots of big names. A little disappointing. Devin Turner, who was expected to start at safety, transfer from Northwestern, did tear his ACL in spring camp. We learned that at media days. That sucks. That's a little bit of a gut punch. But here's the 2 guys that have to step up, and you already kind of nailed it in your analysis. Imarian Winston, defensive end from Oregon, and Matthew Fobbs-White, defensive end from Tulane. Those guys coming in are probably going to be your 2 edge rushers to start the season, and those guys have to put pressure on the quarterback, because you and I both know in the game of football, if you're not putting pressure on the quarterback, does not matter if Darrelle Revis is out there, someone's going to get open. Okay, so really, really essential, in my opinion. The most important thing is for Dave Aranda, whether it's through stunts, schemes, or whether because we do have 2 new linebackers from the transfer portal who are going to play significant minutes, and probably your 2 starting edge rushers came in from the transfer portal. Those guys have to produce. I know we're paying them. They have to produce on the field.
I was is the TCU thing, like, is that probably Baylor's number 1 rival? You like mentioned that there. Number
Big
one
time.
rival.
Big
Okay,
time.
so the butt rivalry is real. Or no, that's not butt. That's not butt. I'm sorry. I was butt Sue.
But
Butt
so
Sue.
it's interesting when I was growing up. So I'm 32, and so the Big 12 I grew up with as a kid did not have TCU.
Yeah.
But we did have A&M. We did have Texas. We did have Texas Tech. And I grew up here in Waco, so Baylor was in my backyard. At that time, when I was a kid, I thought A&M was our rival, but of course, A&M never thought that. Like A&M's rival is Texas, and the irony is Texas doesn't think they're the rival. They look at Oklahoma as the rival. So it's all kind of this
Yeah.
warped thing. Okay, but TCU had an institutional dislike of Baylor because Baylor was the final school that was let into the Big 12 when the Southwestern Conference dissolved. Baylor got into the Big 12 instead of TCU in large part because Baylor had lawmakers and a Texas sitting governor on Capitol Hill that made sure to use their political influence to make sure Baylor made it into the Big 12 instead of TCU. So TCU has had this vitriol boiling under the surface for Baylor for a long time, the whole time they were in the Mountain West. So then A&M jumped ship. TCU joins the conference, and it just instantly became the number one rivalry. I would very biasedly say it's the most vitriol in the state. I'm sure Texas or Texas A&M fans might disagree with me, but we abhor each other, and it is a blast. It's everything you want the college rivalry to be, and part of that is they're both private schools within about 1,000 students of each other in terms of on-campus enrollment, kind of that middle-sized university, private schools. You're 90 minutes away from each other, 80 minutes really if you drive the way most Texans do between campus. It is truly a wonderful college football rivalry. And the games for the last 10 years have added to that. Everyone knows about 61-58 in 2014. That kind of
and they both teams have been good over the last decade for the most part,
correct,
outside of a few years.
Yeah, correct. And so 61-58 is the one we love here in Waco because that kept TCU out of the playoff in 2014, kept Baylor in the playoff conversation. Then we had to split the Big 12 title that year, which is asinine. But the other thing about this rivalry that makes it a true rivalry is it doesn't matter how good or bad either team is. It is always a good game. So you can go look at any of the results from the past decade. TCU has a significantly worse team. They're almost guaranteed to beat Baylor, like almost guaranteed. Last season, I think TCU is the favorite coming into Waco. Baylor wins on a last-second field goal. It's always a close game. It's always intense, no matter what the teams look like. It really is a true college football rivalry.
I'm so jealous. All of Iowa State's rivals have left the conference.
I know.
Well, they're all gone.
I hate that. I hate that about realignment, man. I hate the traditional rivalries getting lost. I hate that we don't have Bedlam in the Big 12 anymore. I hate that we don't have Texas and Texas A&M still in the conference. I liked playing them as a Baylor fan, so I'm with you on that.
Yeah, no Nebraska if we're going back even more. Missouri.
Bingo. Yeah.
Colorado's back.
Colorado's back. But yeah, I miss all of that, all of those rivalries. Although I will tell you, the Holy War being added to the conference is a ton of fun.
That's insane too, because it's like it's kind of tells you how like important the money is. Because I was talking to people and they're like, there's no way that like they would ever like actually like be in the same conference together. That they won't let that happen. And it's like, yeah, you're gonna take the bag. Like, what are you guys talking about? You guys are gonna want to be in the conference.
It's been so good. I like that's the thing. I miss the old Big 12, but the infusion of the new schools, like I think adding those Western schools to bring in some of those markets and those fans has been phenomenal. It's really kept the conference in a good position. I think it's been fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's like too, we get to like know more about like different communities, different parts of the country. Like I really like the new shape of the Big 12, and everyone's kind of like in a similar type position, right? Where it feels like anybody can, if they play their cards right, if the schedule is favorable for them, if the ball bounces right, that like maybe not like everyone could win it this year, but like it's conceivable that like any team over the next like 10 years could build a team to actually, win this conference title, which I'm hoping my school could do that for the first time. It'd be pretty cool.
Listen, James, I think this conference is wide open. I've said on our shows here that I think there's 6 teams that can win it. And last year, if I had told you that, I wouldn't have included Arizona State in my 6. So like we do not know. We do not know. Like I fully expect Baylor to be competing for it. I fully expect Iowa State to be competing for it. Those are 2 of my 6. But it could be, we talked before we started recording, it could be Houston. Like it could be West Virginia. Like, I don't think it will be,
No.
but the way that this conference is shaped and the way it went last season, would it shock me if Houston wins 9 games? No, it actually wouldn't. Like anything can happen in this conference.
I'm looking at like the Kansas schools. Like if Avery Johnson in year 2 can like take that next step and like really.
Oh yeah, don't sleep on KU. Don't sleep on KU.
They just need the quarterback to be healthy.
Yes.
I might have went to that game in Kansas City last year, and I might have watched my team give up like 50 points in 3 quarters. All right, man, this has been a lot of fun, Scotty. Do you want to tell us where we can all find all your content, and then we'll head out of here today?
Yeah, sounds good. So I'm working on a Big 12 television show right now that I'm not allowed to share just yet, but please follow. Yeah, but follow me on X. I would love to tell you about it. I'll probably be able to tell you about it in a week or two. So my X account is at pleasebearw_me because I was one character too long. My podcast is called Please Bear With Me. We're bringing it back in August. It's been dormant for about 3 or 4 years. Bringing it back in August. It'll be on YouTube. You can search Please Bear With Me. It's on Rogue Media. I also produce a daily show called The Pete Souza Show. Every weekday, we go live from 10 to 11, then we cut up clips and post it throughout the day. That show has gained 57,000 subscribers. We talk a ton of Big 12 football because Pete covers Big 12 for ESPN. That's his real job. And then he does a morning show with us every day here at Rogue Media. So I would love it. I would be so honored if you check out The Pete Souza Show. And Please Bear With Me, both part of the Rogue Media family, and both available on YouTube. Good stuff covering the Big 12 on both of those.
Hell yeah, we'll have the links for those in the descriptions below. Thank you so much, Scotty.
Awesome. Thank you, man.